and dynamic speaker in the New Democratic Party. And again, he is the champion for his constituency in Central Kingston. He is the vice president of the New Democratic Party. Please, with all the likes and love tonight and with the round of applause of those of you here in the hall tonight, please welcome the Major, the Honorable St. Clair, Major Leacock.
Thank you very much, Music Man. Thank you very much. President Doc Friday, colleague VP Pato, Chairman Cummins, Senators Bruce and Baptiste. And maybe this is a good time to say we have three powerful elections, Baptiste, Bruce and Bramble. Look out for them, Three Bs. We'll bombing them out. Yes, Gensec and Piaro. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to be here tonight in this important meeting and initiative of my party, the New Democratic Party, led by Dr. Friday. It's a special occasion for me, having been in all elections since '79 through to today, and serving now the third leader of the New Democratic Party. And to let you know how important it is for us in this exercise that all hands are on deck for Team NDP and Team Friday as we go forward into this election. Yes. Now, I have some formal instructions to speak about job creation and other important matters during the course of this election. Tonight may not be that night when I do that, because I take the point well represented this evening by our young, dynamic public relations officer, woman, Piaro. But I feel the pain when she highlights the fact that nearly half of people of her age can't find employment in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, having gone all the way through primary, secondary, and tertiary education, university education, and in her case, a master's degree. And she's not alone, even though she used herself as a rich example. But the point she made is that more than half of our people, not said by the New Democratic Party, but by the international agencies, can't find a job in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. My colleague, Vice President Patel, had to come here and make the point that this is a country that is failing to use what we have to give our people what they want. The land, agriculture, which can create so many jobs and opportunities for us. And he shouldn't have to be making that case in 2020. It should be self-evident, it should be practiced, it should be the norm. My colleague and chairman and my constituent, the waterman, highlights the fact that we are still in 2020 without the kinds of infrastructure that should be necessary to be propelling our country forward for growth. And that's across the board. When you have a society that is failing in all of those many respects, there's only one word to describe such a society or the experience. It's a pandemic. It's pervasive. It's out of control. Under the current regime, it is without solution. That makes St. Vincent and the Grenadines a strange example at this time of facing two pandemics. We may not be able to do anything much about the virus, save and except to follow the protocols, because as someone said, we weren't prepared for that. But we are facing the other pandemic with our eyes wide open, and it's within our powers to address it. And we have heard some of the solutions tonight. Go get registered, don't go alone, take friends, take others, make change and make it happen. Tonight, I want to speak about two important prerequisites for economic development and for good governance that has been woefully absent in our country over the last 20 years. And we can go high, we can go low, we can preach till we blue If these fundamentals are not in place, no amount of change of government, unless we address that, will bring the better life that we're talking about. I go back to the absence of good constitutional government. We have witnessed a first during this regime, where you could not go to the Parliament of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and do what all other Commonwealth countries the world over do: vote for no confidence in the government regime. Think about that. Being a world example where constitutional practices, best practices, are absent. We have seen over the last 20 years that this government doesn't favor democratic traditions and practices. And we should not have been surprised. Because if we went all the way back to 98, when the New Democratic Party constitutionally won government, they said they would make this country ungovernable, and it has remained so until this time. Yes. And we see over and over again the absence of good democratic practices. Yes. You have nice words for it, because ultimately that gives way to the absence of accountability. Amen. Well, no self-respecting nation, no country that is worth its salt can sit down idly by and allow that to continue in perpetuity. But if that wasn't bad enough, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, those at home, those in my constituency, those in the diaspora, we have a country now, and I want this to ring home and reach home to our young people, many of you who are going to vote for the first time, where there's a complete absence of moral courage in the country to look injustice in the face and say that is wrong and change it and turn it around. And so across St. Vincent and the Grenadines now, repeatedly, we can find professional people either turning a blind eye, looking the other way, saying it's not my problem, and St. Vincent continues its merry way downhill to nothingness. We have to arrest that. And all of us who are rendering our services and self-available in this upcoming general elections have to agree that the pillars upon which a society is developed and built must be attended to. And I am pleased, if nothing else, in this campaign, that on the record, and a very rich record of performance by a New Democratic Party, steeped in democratic traditions, respect for constitutional government, and exemplary moral courage, and I call Arnhem Yusuf's name in that regard, we will change that and change it for all times. Because we cannot have a country which our PRO address, only half of the country is functioning and the other starves. We can't continue into that kind of rotational system of governance and say we are doing the best that we can for and on behalf of the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. All across this country, we see a government that has been determined not to allow the people to have a greater hand in determining their fate and their destinies. I brought, on behalf of my party, to the Parliament of St. Vincent and the Grenadines a fundamental question to the Prime Minister of this country, and I asked to express in simple terms, do you accept the importance of constituency development funds so that every parliamentary representative is empowered and put into a position to translate promises and programs into real action, that politics becomes a verb? And he hemmed and he hawed, but ultimately said, no, 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 it's my way or the highway. He singularly determined the destiny of one and all in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. My brothers and sisters, I didn't use the word political pandemic loosely. Look around the St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and you would see the thousands of families who have had to disrupt their life. Take their belly and make boat and set up shop, whether it's in Canada, the BVI, Antigua, Barbados, or neighboring countries. And when you have no shame, it doesn't matter, you know. Because those same people are prepared, same people who can find a plane to bring our students home from Jamaica, are prepared to send aircraft to those same destinations to bring people to vote, to keep a broken system in place. Well, we have to have the moral courage. We have to have the courage to say that that isn't good enough for us in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I so ask of all of my colleagues, because I know that's a feature of my political leader, Dr. Friday, that accountability, respect for law and order, constitutional rule, and democratic traditions will be hallmarks to propel our country forward. It is therefore obvious to all those who are listening that through any measure, any examination, that one of the most important problems that has to be solved in the St. Vincent and the Grenadines today, as we know it, is that vexing question of the ridiculously high levels of unemployment that pervades the land. And unemployment is not a standalone phenomenon. It leads to social deviance. In my own constituency, I'm pained and I'm numbed by the number of young people who every other week have to be a loss of life, a gun shooting, because politics and government have failed them. We have come forward with simple, clear ideas of how we can put more people back to work. We said, if, as you have, and that's the case in St. Vincent, lots of idle lands. Well, common sense tell me, if you have idle lands and you have idle hands, put the hands to the lands and increase productivity. And in that way, so many of our young people are able to work and take care of themselves. You know, the COVID pandemic, you know, has revealed what I defined as the soft underbelly of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They used to boast and brag and represent themselves that poverty in this country was 2%. 2 out of every 100 people in St. Vincent were poor. Well, go now and tell the cartmen who you're trying to buy that that's the case. Go and tell the vendors who you're trying to buy that that's the case. Tell the fishermen that that's the case. Tell all the people who you're lining up to give the cement, lumber, galvanized that that's the case. Tell the NIS, which have been trying to bail you out, that that's the case. In fact, what we are witnessing in the New Democratic Party, and we have to say this is not an election, as I said, between NDP and the ULP. This is now between the people and the Unity Labour Party. That's where we are now. We need all forces moving in the same direction to correct this pandemic, this political pandemic that is upon us. In the last budget, we show them how we think differently and how we can act differently. You have $45 million of World Bank money at your disposal. Not that infrastructure is not important, but you can take that, or a significant portion of it, and invest it in value-added activity. So that while Patel is working hard to get farmers back to work, and speaking about his blue economy, we can put about 10,000 people to work. Because all those sort of fruits that are lying waste in this country, on the roadsides, in the valleys and in the rivers, we can be processing them and creating jobs and opportunity across the board for our young people and not so young people. But it takes a new Democratic Party to think boldly and think outside of the box to address those sorts of issues. I listen with great interest because any attempt to put resources at the disposal of people to improve their production and their productivity is welcomed. But bribing people through selective dispensation of state funds is not necessarily the way to go. And the New Democratic Party has always been the pioneer, have always been the driving force, has always been the can-do party that understands how we deal with value-added development in our country. And so we know that the micro-entrepreneur is important to us. And we know that it must be sustained. And that's why we say we are not into the flash in the pan ideas as it's been represented now. We have lost nearly $3 billion into this economy by stubbornness, hard-headedness, and absence of vision when the Unity Labour Party refused what all of the other countries in the OECS are doing to bring a citizens by investment program here. Yes. That could bring millions of dollars to the shores of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. As I said when we were doing the community meetings, I haven't met St. Lucians on the road of St. Vincent and the Grenadines begging for a job. I haven't met Antiguans begging for a job. I haven't seen Quittitians looking for work in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I don't see Dominicans. But you bet your bottom dollar that half of BVI is Little St. Vincent. Half of Antigua is Little St. Vincent. Half of St. Kitts is Little St. Vincent. And what's keeping them there? The same citizens by investment programs. And there lies the rub. Because the Unity Labour Party remains a contradiction. 15 years ago, near 20 years ago, they didn't want to hear about entrepreneurialism and business and opportunity. They were anti-business. The state was to be able to control everything. We ended up with labor gas because everything was supposed to be controlled by the state. This country has had enough of it. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, young people, and I want you to take this from nothing else I said tonight, you know. You, young people, as Obama said yesterday, are charged with shaping the direction of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I spoke already about us not being the laughing stock of the world with respect to constitutional matters. Any day now, because I'm not saying it's going to be December, and I'm not doubting people say it will be August, but any day now, the bell will be rung, or the bell will ring them, and there will be a general election. You know Dr. Friday, you know Patel, you know Sister K, you know Bruce in the National Youth Council, you know the Waterman at the Water Authority, you know Nature Stevens, and so many of us. You have seen us operate in what they define as the wilderness years, joining politics in opposition against the so-called strongest government in the world. You have seen and witnessed that. You have seen how we have withstood that. And under Eustace and now Friday, we have held our guns to decency, morality, and principle. You have seen that. And why are you going to abandon that course to have a coronation, to try and put in place for another 5, 10, 15 years a family government? Eigel puts it well, you know. Eigel Adam puts it well. The SVG, the G in SVG doesn't stand for Gonzales. It stands for the Grenadines. St. Vincent must be a place for all of us. You cannot have a person who never led a political party, who never held political office in a political party, parachuting onto a nation state as the Prime Minister. If they want to make you a Solicitor General, make you a Senator, make you an Ambassador, make you a Minister of Finance, well, it's up to you, the people. But may I just say, no Sankey not saying so. Friday, New Democratic Party. Way to go. Good night. Thank you. God bless you.